Frank. Hi, it's Richard.
G'day, mate.
Look, I'm filming a show around the South Island and I need your help.
Convince me.
There's free food, okay? Are you in, fella?
He sounds pretty good to me. Count me in.
Well, here we are, end of the road, Invercargill. Beautiful city, pride of the South. Now, got another list, but I'll tell you what, this time I'll get it. You just get out and enjoy yourself.
Sure, am I hearing right?
You are, yeah, I do. You know so well, Frank. You deserve a day off.
All right.
Head out, have a good time, and I'll see you for dinner.
I'm off before you change your mind.
Rightio.
Cheerio.
Bluff oysters are one of New Zealand's greatest delicacies, and this morning I've come down to Barnes Oysters to see Graham to see if I can get a few to cook for dinner tonight. Tell me a little bit about the history of this oyster fishery.
Well, the fishery's been commercially fished since about 1860, I think, officially. So it's, as far as I'm aware, it's sort of the oldest commercial fishery still operating in New Zealand.
I can't see any way that this could have changed much.
No, I think the shape and the variability in shape of oysters is that to get something mechanical is going to be very difficult. So we rely on the skill level of these guys to do the job.
It's an important part of the community. You'd hate, it'd be ridiculous to mechanise this and not have this whole community operating in a seasonal job, I would have thought.
It is. It's certainly it's a very iconic industry for Southland, and these guys, they just love it. It's almost they need to come back every year. These guys here will probably, on a day like today, will open close to 100,000 oysters probably, 7,000 or 8,000 dozen. Most of these openers are sort of, probably capable of opening sort of 12 to 15 oysters a minute or thereabouts.
Back in the 50s and 60s, you could buy oyster soup in cans like this and bulk lots of 12 dozen in cans like this. Nowadays, oysters are sold in dozen bottles like these, which sell for $25 a dozen or $50 in restaurants. They can be served lots of ways, natural, battered, or Kilpatrick, which is how I will be serving mine tonight. Well, Graham, I'm cooking dinner tonight and I'd love to cook some oysters. Can you sort me out?
Oh, I'm sure we could have some little delicacies to take away with you.
That's brilliant. I think that'll keep Frank happy.
You're more than welcome.
Good on you.
One of the jewels in Southland's crown is the Bill Richardson Truck Museum here in Invercargill, recognised as the finest collection of its type in the world. Can you tell me a little bit of the history of the museum? How did it start? When did it start, etc.?
Well, it really had its beginnings quite a long time ago. Back in 1967, Bill Richardson found the remains of a little 33 International pickup that his grandfather had bought new, and he thought it'd be quite nice to save one or two old trucks that had belonged to the family business.
Oh, okay.
So that's really where it started from, but it didn't really start assembling as a collection in this building until about 1985. At that stage, Bill had collected up 13 trucks, and it just sort of grew from there.
How many trucks are there now?
We have close on 230 in this building. It covers about 10,000 square metres in total. Bill passed away suddenly 8 years ago, and I've been running the museum for the family since then.
This model here catches your eye straight away. Can you tell me a little bit about this one?
Yeah, well, they're pretty unique. It's a Dodge airflow tanker. There was only 303 of those ever built. This particular one is the fourth last one that was built. It was built in February 1940. Well, all the trucks in this particular shed are all of English origin. We have here some BMC vehicles, sort of ranging from the late 40s sort of through to about the 60s.
So Ian, do you have plans to restore everything?
No, museums are really about recording history as well, so a lot of them have still got their working clothes on. They're still just as they were found, basically, and if you restore them all, you take away a lot of that history. It becomes another shiny object rather than something that tells a bit of history.
Yeah.
And of course, Bill started collecting a few fuel pumps too, but like the museum, it just sort of grew and carried on. And these pumps here, of course, Europa was probably the only New Zealand-owned company. It was owned by the Todd family. Later on, was bought out by BP. And our pumps range in age from about 1910 up until probably the 70s.
Well, Ian, this looks like a special room already, as soon as you step into it.
Yeah, well, most of the trucks in here are of American origin. There are a couple of exceptions, or a few exceptions. There's some Australian Internationals, and there's one English Ford in here. Range in age from about 1911 up to, I think, 1996 is the latest one.
Oh, yeah, yeah. And all restored?
Most of these are restored. There are a couple or three original ones, but most of them are restored.
Okay.
So they were found in a pretty dilapidated state and had to be brought back.
And, you know, a lot of names that you've never ever heard of.
That's right. Well, the old Wachusett, it was one of those companies that was around for a short time in the 1920s.
Well, I noticed the name Bowser, SF Bowser & Co. Is this where we get the name for the petrol pumps even today that we call them?
That's right. Well, that's where the name Bowser, although they're actually fuel pumps, but Mr. Bowser was the man that actually created the petrol pumps, and they were originally designed so they could dispense kerosene for, back in those days, everybody had a lamp probably rather than electricity. They were always spilling it around the storeroom in the local stores when they were trying to dispense the stuff. And Mr. Bowser created the pump for pumping the kerosene so they could fill up their containers without spilling it around the storerooms. You want to come for a ride in the truck we just finished yesterday, Frank?
It's a big 10-4, Ian.
Righto, let's go.
Hi, I'm Mike Wilkins. I work in our family farming business based here in Athol in Northern Southern.
Well, tell me, Michael, a little bit about your family farming operation.
What we're farming today, Richard, Mum and Dad started in 1974, and they started about 130 hectares, and that sort of evolved to a family business today with my two brothers and myself involved, still working with them, probably running up to about 4,000 hectares of arable type land.
And this one, you run deer.
Yeah, this is mainly deer. There's obviously there's venison, velvet, antlers, and then we have genetics that we breed and sell to other breeders that also supply alliance. Our job, or our part of the deal, is to produce an animal that's going to give us maximum return, money-wise, but it's also going to be easy for them to sell to the market and achieve that high value. So our job is to make sure that when they get the animal, they can turn it into these high value products.
Well, Michael, talk me through, getting a deer to the market.
Well, from birth, Richard, which for us is November, the young stock hit the ground and they'll be set stocked. We put them out on that type of country up there, the extensive hill type country, so there's no disturbance, and they're left there till about 4 months of age, where we bring them in end of February, March for weaning, where the fawns are taken away from their mum, and then they're brought down to the flats and they're just basically fed as well as we can so they can grow as fast as they can, and before they go to the meat plant in about November.
Is that my leg of venison, is it, Michael?
Yeah, no, there's your leg all ready to go.
Beautiful. Looking forward to cooking it, and thanks for showing me around the farm. Real pleasure.
Oh no, I hope you enjoyed your time with us and learned a bit about deer farming.
I sure did. Lovely day on the farm. Thank you very much for it.
No, I hope the venison cooks well.
I'm sure it will. See you again.
So Mike, skipper of the Kiri Waipai here at Shark Experience. How long you been doing this?
About 4 years. Sort of got involved when scuba diving around here getting crayfish, and I've had a couple of great whites come up to me and sort of got me interested in the sharks. We've had sharks jump clear out of the water reasonably close to the boat, and we're talking sharks of 4 metres plus in length that weigh over a tonne.
Yep.
Yeah, so they make a big splash.
So what do you actually do to attract the sharks to the boat?
Well, we use tuna, albacore tuna. Reason being is it has a high oil content.
Okay.
And of course sharks do eat tuna for certain times of the year. And that's our primary means of bringing the sharks in. Well, what we're going to obviously do is put you in a wetsuit because the water temperature here is only about 14 degrees. Okay. Get you into a weighted harness. We'll connect the regulator with the hose to your harness and walk you to the back of the vessel here, and we'll get you ready to get you into that cage.
I've done the parasailing, I've done the biplanes, I survived the bungee. I'm about to go down and do a shark dive, so I'm not too sure about this one. This is probably the most nerve-wracking of the lot, but I am looking forward to a beautiful day in the Fovo Strait here. So with Shark Experience, we're going to go down there and have a good time.
Let's get that mask on. Turn around and face me. Is it sucking onto your face? Good. Away you go.
I'm going to go down and have a look. Being that close, it's bloody scary, and just the sight of them, and they're all knocked up, they're all sort of scarred and nicked, and to get that close to their teeth and the eyes just black as anything, they just, when they come around the corner and just look at you, and you know where you are in the food chain. These guys are the boss. They don't care. I don't know, I think I found myself holding my breath when the shark swam past really close, because I was maybe trying not to be noticed. Man, this will be up there. This is probably the best thing I've done on this trip. And I've had some good experiences, but for me to be out here, I think this has by far been the best for me. Seeing, I think it's animals in the wild. I mean, I don't think it gets better than that.
Need some vegetables to cook for dinner, and the veggie shed here in Athol looks like it might be the best place on earth for them. Let's go in. Well, these great looking vegetables. Well, and I've got everything I need for dinner tonight now.
Hey Frank, I hear you've been doing a bit of shark diving.
G'day Tim, yeah I have, I just got back, had a great time.
I'll tell you what, I've got a bit of a plan. Before we go out to dinner, shall we call it at the Invercargill Brewery?
Perfect, sounds good.
Hop in! G'day Steve, good to see you again.
Good to see you, Tim.
Like you to meet Frank, he's just been doing a bit of shark diving, so we thought we'd call in for a cold one.
Oh, sounds good to
Steve, how are
me.
you?
Nice to meet you.
You too.
What would you like to drink?
Ooh, what do you recommend?
I've got the perfect beer for you. I reckon a Beeman will be about spot on.
Perfect.
So what else can I do for you fellas?
Well, I've got a dinner tonight and we're having venison. Do you have anything you'd recommend for that?
I think I might have the perfect thing. We've either got the pitch black, nice chocolatey notes, coffee, nice rich beer, and then we got the smoking bishop. It's got a hint of Manuka smoke in it.
I like the sound of chocolate and coffee, so I think pitch black.
Excellent.
Cheers.
Gentlemen.
Right, the Southland meal. Star of the show is going to be a venison casserole, a lovely red wine, herby, mushroomy, rich casserole with spatzel, which is sort of a part pasta, part dumpling. 100% delicious, of course. But first of all, it's going to be oysters. Oysters Kilpatrick or Kirkpatrick. Lots of versions of the name, lots of versions of the recipe. First thing I'm going to do is load the shells in front of me with some of these oysters. Right, and now the topping. Over here, I have some bacon. A lightly smoked bacon that I've diced up and I've fried it with a tiny little bit of finely minced red onion. Now I'm going to add cream. Don't know the measure. I'm just going to add it till it feels like it's right. About that. Now Worcestershire sauce, a few drops. Now spring onions, that's 2 spring onions chopped up finely, and a grind of pepper for good measure. Now I just have to spoon this mixture evenly over the top of my oysters. They just need to go under the grill just until the sauce is bubbling up around the oysters and the bacon's browned a little bit more, and then served and eaten right away. Well, those look pretty much the way they ought to. Bubbling, delicious, crispy bacon, creamy Worcestershire, saucy. What's not to love about them? So there they are, oysters Kilpatrick, my way. Now onto the venison. So we wanted to cut these into cubes, reasonably big cubes, sort of a couple of centimetre square-ish. Now some garlic. Put in a couple of bay leaves and red wine. Cover it in red wine. We're just going to set it aside and get on with preparing the vegetables. These carrots and onions will add a lovely sweetness to the dish, and the mushrooms over here a lovely rich earthiness which will complement the venison and red wine wonderfully well. Just want to soften and very faintly colour the carrots and onions. I'm going to cook them over a sort of moderate to low heat. Right, well that is cooked just about right. There's a wee bit of colour in it, so we add that to the dish we're going to be baking the casserole in, and then get on with cooking the meat. We're going to brown it. This is a very important little technical part of making the dish the best it possibly can be. So it's been marinating in the red wine, lovely cubes of pure South Denver leg. Take it out of the wine, just give it a wee dry on a paper towel, then roll it in some seasoned flour, a little bit of salt and pepper, and into the pan. Give it a wee roll on the towel just to get most of that wine moisture off, otherwise it'll just soak up too much flour. Another very important thing in doing this is you don't want to crowd the pan. If you put too much venison in the pan at one time, then as it cooks, it all just steams. A lot of moisture comes out and it just gushes all over the piece next to it, and you're not going to get any browning at all. You're just going to get stewing basically. So you need to do this in batches. Right, so we want to turn it around and give it a nice even brown on all sides. And gently brown. It's not scorching it, just browning it. Right, so last batch of meat is nicely browned. And in it goes into the casserole. Now all we have to do is brown bacon and soften the mushrooms. Combine the casserole with the liquids and get it in the oven. So first the bacon into the pan. The bacon's pretty browned. The mushrooms just need to soften. Add that to the casserole with the lovely brown venison and the softened carrots and onions. An important part of the flavour is what we got in the bottom of the pan there, all those brownings. Don't want to waste that. We're going to deglaze the pan with a little bit of stock. Scrape all those good brown bits off. Right, final assembly. Everything substance-wise is in here, the bacon, the mushrooms, the venison, the carrot, the onion. Just give it a bit of a stir, combine it all. Now we're going to add the liquid. First of all, the deglazing. Next, there's the red wine and garlic that we marinated the venison in. Put that in, push the garlic down in amongst it. And then stock, a good stock, but you know, you could use water if you don't have good stock. It's going to be very delicious. There's so much flavour in the venison. And I want that covered, so I'm going to have to go back to the wine. Another splash. Cover the meat. So I've tied up a little bundle, sort of a parcel with a bay leaf on either side, some thyme and some parsley stalks, bit of parsley top as well. Put that in there, push it down, lid on, and into the oven. Very considerately, I have one in here already. And there it is. And that meat is soft and delicious. Onions and carrots have given up all their flavour into that sauce. I think that's going to be absolutely spectacular. So, plate it up now. Some spätzle, fried German pasta. Star of the show, the pure South Denver leg in a red wine mushroom and herb style. Looks disarmingly sort of plain, but I think you'll find when you eat it, it's rich, delicious, and everything you could possibly want from a casserole. Well, evening Tim, Frank.
Hey, Richard, very good.
Some oysters for you, Kilpatrick.
Boy, my favourite. I just can't be bothered cooking them. I tend to eat them straight away, but well, now that you've done the job for us.
Best way.
Richard. Absolutely delicious. We did have a professor in Nelson who said he could make bluff oysters in laboratory conditions that were just as delicious as ours. So I rushed out to try and copyright the name. Now, that, much to our horror, we discovered that you can't actually take out any rights or copyright on Bluff, because Bluff is a geographic location. It would be like saying beach oysters or cliff oysters.
Oh, I see.
And you can't register the name of a geographic location, but we could register Fovo Strait Bluff oysters. So we registered those. So the council's got the intellectual property rights, we think, to the bluff oysters.
Very good.
Nice.
Right, well, I'll go and sort out the main course.
Oh, that'd be lovely.
What are we eating?
Venison stew
Venison stew.
with spätzle, which is a fried sort of German pasta.
I can't remember the last time I had a stew, even. No.
Well, it's very soft, the venison, so it's turned out well. Yes, now, of course, in the south here, we've always prided ourselves on food. You know, Taste of Southland was our big exhibition for when we had the Rugby World Cup down here, and we've got the Oyster Festival, of course, in May, which is a real tradition down here, and then Burt Munro Challenge. We have 3,000 motorbikes calling into town, so we like to make sure they all taste southern foods while they're here.
Well, Frank, end of the road. Been a great journey with you.
Has been a great journey. Fortunately, it's back to the real world now.
Now is the hour when we must say goodbye. Soon we'll be sailing far across the sea.
I'm going out, it's a party. Which car should I drive, the red or white Lamborghini? Spray my underarm so my shirt smell good. It's a party, no need for ties, so I pick a suit. Well dressed, now I already smell cool. Only took about half an hour in my bathroom. My hair's got shampoo, my body got soap. Warm Heidi's on my mind. Now tell me what's on, y'all. We gonna have a party, we be drinking all